again, wanted to take this time to just kind of give you where we are in terms of activities for us as we look to get our fall seasons started. It's been a long time since March since we've been able to have any activities, and we know that lots of people are wanting to get back to our activities, but staying safe has to be the priority for all of us, and it certainly is for us and the schools that make up our organization. So we're trying to find that balance of maybe being able to provide activities, but to be able to do so in the safest manner in which we can. We have probably on a daily basis been in contact with many of the public health professionals. One of the questions that I've gotten from you all is, do we pay attention to what other states are doing? And we absolutely do. And we've been watching what other states are doing. We've been paying attention to what the other levels are doing, what they're doing at the NC2A level. We look at information on a daily basis and trying to determine whether or not it's even feasible to consider going forward with activities. Based on what we have right now, our plan is to move forward in trying to provide our activities in the fall. Some of our activities have already started practice. And our plan is to move forward as scheduled with those activities, knowing that before we start competitions, there may have to be a delay. Or if we do get started, there can and probably likely be interruptions where we have to stop for a while and get started again. But we're going to make an effort to get those activities played in some manner, in some version. They're not going to look like what they looked like in the past. We can probably tell you that with some certainty. There may be some shortened seasons. There may be some truncated playoff series. So they're not going to look like what we've been used to, but we feel like that our schools want us to give their kids a chance to have activities, again, in the safest manner that we possibly can. So that is our goal right now. Do we have contingency plans to manage those interruptions, those delays? We do, and we're still working on some others because there can be several different delaying and interrupting scenarios, but we're working to try to be able to have a plan to manage those as we encounter them, and still try to have our activities. The progression that we're looking at is, first of all, delay if we need to delay, but still move forward. If we have to stop during the middle of the semester, if we're interrupted because of a spike in numbers or the information that we receive from the experts say it's not wise to move on, then we may stop and try to resume when it's a good time to. Have we considered the option of moving some activities to the spring? We have, and we're looking at a plan to maybe, worst case scenario, have to conduct all our activities during the spring semester. If that's the case, we're looking to do that as well. So we're trying to think through all the different scenarios that could be presented, and again, with the goal of allowing our kids to have their activities and to do so in the safest manner which we possibly can. With that, I want to get into some of the questions that we have received from you all, and again, hopefully they might one person's questions may answer what you had, and if not, we're ready to receive your questions through the chat feature and try to get to all of them in the time that we have set aside. So we'll just get started. One of the questions was, are we keeping tabs on what other states are doing? And again, as I mentioned earlier, we absolutely are. We know what Texas did a couple of days ago, and is what they did an option, for instance, in playing some activities or conducting their playoff series at different times for different classes. Is that an option? I would tell you that everything is on the table. If it gives us a chance to get them played, we can certainly do something like that. But yes, we are paying attention to not only what other state associations are doing, but different levels, the collegiate level. We're going to pay attention to what our state colleges and universities are doing. We are trying to stay in contact with them as best we can to try to get a feel for what they're thinking in terms of their fall activities. But yes, we are going to pay attention to what the different groups are doing as we make our plans going forward. A couple of questions that pretty much deal with local district control issues. The protocol if a football player tests positive, for instance. The school districts themselves are going to manage those scenarios. We don't want to intervene and try to tell a school district how best to manage those scenarios. They know the students much better than we do. They're going to be able to put together protocols on that local level much better than we could from our level for their individual students. What about fans, cheerleaders, fans at football games this fall? Again, during the regular season, that's going to be a local control issue. That local district's going to make that call. Once we get to postseason, when we take over the management of those games, we hope, all I can tell you is that we will hope to have fans at our games. Again, and trying to do it safely, we want to have fans at our activities. That's such a big part in our minds of the high school experience, of having those fans there. So will we have to take some measures to keep people safe? We will. Distancing, wearing masks, those are all options for us to use to allow fans, but we hope to be able to do some of those things. We haven't established exactly what those will be just yet, but our goal is once we get to the postseason, we want to be able to allow as many fans as possible in order for us to create that environment for our kids and yet stay safe. Got a question that discusses eligibility requirements for students who may move to Oklahoma from states that have already decided, for instance, that they're not going to have their traditional fall activities in the fall. And I'll tell you an example will be New Mexico. They have already made that move of all of their fall activities to the spring. So what if we get New Mexico students who want to come to Oklahoma to participate in fall activities, if we do have them? Our eligibility rules as they're written would not allow that unless the move was predicated by some unusual circumstance other than because of COVID, our state is not conducting our activities in the fall. That would not be what we would consider one of those circumstances. We would honor that. We know what that could do to schools in other states, if that were to be allowed, we would expect the same type of scenario, that same type of treatment if roles were reversed. So our eligibility rules won't change in that regard. It would still take unless someone picked up and moved into one of our school districts, it would take an unusual circumstance that we could approve on a hardship waiver to allow other students from other states to participate. Another statement, another question is in regards to our football championships being played at one site or multiple site. We're still working on that. We hope to be able to have some news for you in that regard by our September board meeting. So we're still working on those plans for our football championships. And again, hopefully we'll be able to have that for you, have some information for you around our September board meeting. Got a good question of what activities could look like if we had to take that measure, that last resort for us in moving all our fall activities to the spring. That's a very good question. Right now, the initial thought for us is that we would play condensed seasons for our fall, winter, and spring sports. Would have to decide on the length of those seasons. They could be 8-week seasons, possibly 10-week seasons for each of the fall, winter, and spring sports or spring activities. That would take us through June, either of those scenarios in finishing. But that's kind of an idea of what things would look like. We would again condense the seasons into a shortened version, and still try to provide the opportunities for those kids to be able to participate in their activities. Would it impact spring sports for the kids that have already been impacted this past year? It absolutely could. But again, that's why we're so motivated in trying to have the activities in some form, because we know that our students, especially our spring kids, have already missed out on part of their high school career in terms of activities, and we don't want that to happen again if we can possibly help it and stay safe. Got a question that is non-COVID related, but it's related to how you all interact with some of our officials during the regular season games in regards to 60-second timeouts. I guess what I would like to convey is that communication with our officials, if you're doing a radio or streaming broadcast, communicating with the head referee is paramount. We've got to be able to do that to let them know they've got so many things going on that it's imperative that they know what the expectations are from you. And I would hate to think that any of our officials would not try to accommodate you as best they could. But if you run into that situation where you did communicate, you've done everything you felt like in your power to accomplish what you needed, and that didn't happen, we want to know about that. I know our director of officials would want to know about that, because we know you're trying to do a job, and we're going to try to accommodate you as best we can. So again, I would encourage much communication if you're conducting one of those broadcasts with the referee especially, and see if we can get you what you need. If not, please let our office know about it, and we'll certainly address it.
David, is there a date that, you know, here with everything starting to be played on August the 10th and then football practice starting then, is there a date that y'all are looking at in which, you know, you will say, okay, at this point we're going ahead with the start of the season as we intend to, or, you know, make a delay announcement?
Yeah, Mike, we've been asked that a lot. We don't have that just that drop dead date in which we're going to say at this on August 1st we're going to delay the season or move the activities. We're going to again go forward as planned. Now, with the information that we get that changes so often, you know, we may get information Monday that points us in a different direction. And if so, if we get that information and we see we need to do something different, then we'll make that call at that time. But we haven't set a date in which we are determining that yes, we're going to delay the season or we're going to move things to the spring. We're just going to proceed as if our season is going to go as scheduled, unless again we get information from some of the public health officials that it's not a good idea to do so.
David, I wanted to ask you about multi-sport athletes, and if everything does have to get moved to the spring, are athletes going to have to just choose which sport they're going to play instead of playing both? And then to follow up to that, the smaller schools that depend on multiple sport athletes to basically have a roster to play, how would that be handled if everything was moved to the spring?
If we had to move all activities to the spring, again, we would still separate them as best we could between the seasons, the fall, winter, and spring seasons, and we would probably even arrange some of the activities within each of those seasons to try to, as best we could, and with the information that we have, reduce the amount of overlap that we could. There's no way that we would be able to do that if to completely eliminate that overlap if we had to move to the spring. And so, yeah, there are going to be some scenarios where people would have to make a decision, at least maybe from ending one season and starting another. There was certainly probably some of that, but again, we're in a very different a time with our activities, and I think our goal is to at least provide them in some manner. It's not going to be ideal. However we proceed, we know there's going to be some issues, some problems, but we're going to do the best we can to at least provide the activities.
And when you look at, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Daniel. I'm sorry.
When you look at just if you were to play everything in the spring and you did have to condense the seasons, has there already been talk about, you know, we see on the college level, they're looking at conference only schedules. So have you guys been talking about exactly what you'd be looking at when it comes to condensing and what that may look like for these schools as far as their seasons go?
Yeah. You know, certainly the number of games played, regular seasons would absolutely be condensed. And in a lot of, you know, as you alluded to, that colleges are doing, some of the colleges are doing, in our activities where we have districts, you know, similar to the conferences, we would more than likely eliminate those non-district games and just played what was necessary in order to set up a playoff series. So there would obviously be a condensed regular season, and more than likely the reducing of games would come from eliminating some of the non-district games that we would normally play.
Thank you.
With some schools going online and some schools make a decision to delay their start of their school year, is it up to individual school districts on whether activities can go forward if that school district happens to be online at the time of activities, or are you guys going to step anyway? How do you envision that kind of thing working?
Yeah, that would be something left to the individual districts. You know, I think schools are going to be opening in lots of different scenarios where some will be totally virtual. Some are bringing kids back to the campus 100%, and some are using a hybrid model, using both virtual and person-to-person instruction. So we're going to leave the decision to participate in activities up to that school because they're going to be so different across the state and what their formats are going to look like.
Can you just talk a little bit about the safety protocols for the players? Will the coaches be required to wear face masks and temperature checks? Just kind of the protocols you guys are thinking.
We are presenting our schools with some guidelines. They are just that. The schools will not be required to use them, but we are based on some guidelines from, again, all the public health professionals, the CDC, our state health department. We've even teamed up with some of the doctors, Dr. Ivan from OSU and Dr. Bratzler from OU, in trying to determine what is best, the best way to stay safe in participating in our activities. So we're combining all that, formulating some guidelines for our schools to use, again, based on that information that we get. But as far as mandates, we're going to leave to the schools to implement those guidelines as they see fit. You know, the emphasis for us in our communications to our schools is to do everything they can to keep the kids safe, but we would not mandate those items, but we're going to strongly suggest that they use them.
Hi, David. This is Andy Morphy with the Duncan Banner. I had a question about if football season is not completed, but basketball wanted to start. Is there going to be like a little overlap with that, or how's that going to work? And what do you see out of that?
Well, that wouldn't be much different than what we have now. Basketball gets started before we end the football season now. And so that wouldn't be much different, but much like the earlier question, if we have to delay or stop, be interrupted in the middle of the semester, or even have to move to the spring, there could end up being quite a bit of overlap from one sport to the other. Again, it's not ideal. It's not something that we like, but given the circumstances we're under, it may very well happen.
Hey, David, Glenn Brock, Commissioner Law and Constitution. I know that you've said that largely you believe that the school districts will kind of govern themselves. Let's say a school has a couple of positive tests. Is it just kind of up to the school to decide whether that team will have to sit out the next 2 weeks, and how might that affect scheduling? Would their next two opponents just win via forfeit?
Good question. I'm glad you asked that, because we in anticipation of something like that, we had our board approve a policy to accommodate that scenario where school A is healthy and ready to go, and school B may, because of an outbreak at their school, may not. And if they shut their school down say for a couple of weeks because they've had some people identified. Generally, in a district scenario, say like a district football game, that school that could not play would ordinarily have to forfeit, count that as a forfeit. But we've got a policy approved in this scenario that would not count that as a forfeit. We would ask the schools to try to find a day to make up that contest that was lost, and let's get that played. But even if they couldn't, and especially in a season like football where you don't have a lot of time to get those regular season games in, that still doesn't eliminate a school. That doesn't automatically eliminate them from our playoff series. It sends us into a different mode in establishing who advances and how they advance. But we would not, if in case a school had to shut down and not play 1 or 2 or 3 games because of an outbreak, we're not going to automatically cause them to forfeit and eliminate them from our playoff series.
David, Jim up in Miami, if all the sports aren't pushed back to spring, would you guys consider playing baseball in the spring championship series, maybe in June or July? I know Iowa does their baseball and fast pitch championship series in July.
Yeah, that's their typical time for them. But are you asking, would we extend our school year or our seasons into June, possibly July? Yes, we would want to do that to try to get our seasons in. So we have already looked at if it comes to that, to where we're playing all our activities in the spring, we're probably at best looking at finishing at the end of June. Okay, got time for just a couple more questions before I get to go do another meeting. So take a couple more.
David, I was gonna ask one more thing, and
Okay.
I don't know if it'll really have much impact because I mean more so maybe in kind of the bigger markets. But do we know what this if there will be any restrictions on number of media members per game, especially in some of the smaller press boxes that some of these schools have, or is that again up to the school districts?
For the regular season, Glenn, that's going to be up to the local districts. We would try to accommodate, once we got to our playoff series, we would try to accommodate, best we could, as many as we could, based on, the safety protocols that we get from the health experts. I would imagine that with distancing, social distancing being the order of the day, there, probably natural to expect there be not as much space. So I would just encourage you to be in touch with the schools as soon as possible to try to find out exactly what their setup might be and how many they're going to allow.
David, Bill Huddleston with Vite. You were discussing earlier about players moving in from other states. If let's take, for example, if an athlete moves in, I think your example was New Mexico. If an athlete was their family to move to Oklahoma into any respective district, what would be their transfer opportunities? I mean, would they be treated the same as any other student that moved from one school district to another because of a family issue?
Yes, yeah, Bill. Our eligibility, our residence eligibility it allows that student eligibility in the district their parents reside. So if they move and establish a residence in whatever district that establishes their eligibility. What we anticipate and what the other states around us anticipate, especially for schools that are on the borders, not making that bona fide move that you mentioned, but staying where they are and transferring into another district. That's where we would have the issue. But someone picking up and making a bona fide move from New Mexico to a district in Oklahoma, that would grant them that eligibility. How about one more question?
Real quick, do you know when you guys are going to release the guidelines for safety protocols to the districts?
Yeah, we hope to have those out by the end of the day today, as a matter of fact. And I wanted you all to know that we had a short time today, and especially with our technical issues. We want to do this again, and we're going to try to do it again, say in a couple of weeks, to see where we are at that point. As I mentioned earlier, this thing is so fluid. What we talked about today could be and look totally different in a couple of weeks. So we are going to try to do this again to keep you updated on where we are and allow you to ask us questions. So thank you for, again, taking the time, and we will be in touch, I'm guessing in the next 2 weeks to let you know the time and date in which we're going to try to do this again. So thank you all very much. If you need to contact us, please do so anytime you need to.